Stuart Smith.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. It's a pleasure to speak on the Animal Welfare Amendment Bill. I'd like to just start by, I don't think I can let the member who started out on the opposition get away with the comments he made about farming. I'd like to just point out that that farmers don't have a monopoly on idiocy, and I think that you've got to be very careful when you go down that track. And I'd like to say, actually, farmers are reliant on their animals, and they live with them every day when they're out working with them. They rely on their productivity. Happy animals are more productive, and they've got a vested interest in their animals being happy and productive, a good financial interest in it. And having been a farmer myself, Mr Speaker, I know only too well that stock that do really well are very happy, and we've seen lots of evidence of that. So I'd like also, Mr Speaker, to congratulate the Minister. I didn't have the pleasure of sitting on the Select Committee when this started through the process, but I think we've ended up with a really sound bill. And it's important that we get a bill that has a good framework that will last through time, because what's acceptable today may not be acceptable in the future, and certainly what was acceptable in the past isn't always acceptable today. And to get that bill written in such a way that it will last a long time is really a great skill, and I tip my hat to the Minister on that, so thank you. It's important that the bill is able to be enforced, and enforceability in the bill is really important. And I do take on board what the previous speaker said about it is going to come down to whether there are enough resources there. I'm very confident that there are currently, and I think it's easy to point the finger and say that there isn't, and always need to throw more money at it. In fact, the government under its Better Public Services has shown that actually government can deliver more for less. And we've seen that right across a number of different ministries, and I'm sure that that's the case in the MPI. And having that clear enforceability is really very important. But you must have the framework in the legislation, and we actually have that in this. So I congratulate you on that. We must have clarity as well in this legislation, and I'm very pleased that that's there and it's transparent. That's really important. I think we talked a lot about farming, and I think we mustn't forget that actually, as the Minister pointed out, 2/3 of households have a pet, at least one. And that's a lot of animals when you think about it, and often there is no economic driver to look after those pets necessarily that well, and it's important that we have a good framework to enforce that and ensure that those animals get the treatment that they deserve. Farming is the backbone of New Zealand's economy. In fact, I think if we took primary production away, the New Zealand economy would virtually disappear. So it was talked about earlier that would be a threat to our exports. I think the threat isn't so much that we wouldn't have our export markets, it's actually that the price that we sell our exports at is so important. We are niche marketers, and the people that buy our products at a higher price are buying it on choice, and things like animal welfare are essential, that they have confidence in that area. And that's where I think it is. It's not about necessarily having our markets closed to us, it's about being able to sell at that higher end. And that's been recognised, and I know the Minister has a great understanding of this, and that's really important for the future of New Zealand's agriculture, that we aim at that top end. And that's where we're going as a country, and that's how we will grow our export returns. It's going to be value really over volume in the long term in a sustainable way, and I think that's very important. I'd like to talk about the Mojo Mathers, her SOP, and I do also like to congratulate her for putting up an SOP which was well thought out. Unfortunately, it was a bit broad, and there were unintended consequences that could have come out of that, and the Minister has recognised that and come up with an SOP that deals with that area, but in a much more concise way, and achieves what the member set out to, but ensures that we don't foot trip ourselves by getting tangled up in little technicalities further down the line. So I think that's very important. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I call Sue Moroney.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's a pleasure to rise and speak